Headline. The headline out of this debate, as far as I can tell, is his refusal to say he would accept the results of the election. That doesn't happen usually in America. It's newsworthy. It's controversial. It's a big deal. And so the question is that something that's going to help him? I doubt it. I think I agree with the two of you. This was his best performance to date. He scored point after point after point on her. She wasn't rattled by it. She did fine in her own right, but there was nothing spectacular about her performance tonight. There didn't need to be. He's the guy that really needed to pull something off here tonight. And even if he did, and he may well have in the eyes of many people, I think he stepped on it by refusing to say he'd accept the results of the...
Monica, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting because debates are less about policy nuance than they are about style, tone, the occasional zinger, and demonstrating an ability to think on your feet. I think tonight both of these candidates went into this debate with certain missions. Donald Trump's was to project a sense of calm, level-headedness, rationality, and I think he projected that through his tone tonight. He needed to show voters that he is a safe choice if you are uncomfortable with Mrs. Clinton. He also needed to reassure on responsible leadership. And to that extent, I think he accomplished his mission. Mrs. Clinton, because she cannot reassure on the honest and trustworthy aspect of her candidacy and personality, she had to reassure on core competence, and I think she probably delivered on that as well.
Juan, your thoughts?
Well, I can't get over not accepting the results of an election. I remember what happened between Gore and Bush, and it was very difficult for the whole country, specifically for Democrats who thought that Al Gore got more votes than George W. Bush, but accepted the result for the better of our country.
At the end. Didn't accept it on election night.
Well, no, it was fought over, but it was accepted. And President Bush's authority as President of the United States never called into question.
Well, that's not true. It was never called into question.
I don't think it was ever called into question.
For years.
I don't know anything
You worked for President George W.
He might have been criticized, but I have never, in terms of the way George W. Bush was treated, he was our president, he was my president. And I'm telling you, when you say that you will consider it, you'll think about it, to me, that's a showstopper. I don't know how you get past that. That's not in our American tradition. That's not the way we play politics.
We should point out that Donald Trump is leaving, and we're getting word that he's not going to go to the spin room as he has done previously. Right. He is leaving the hall.
And just for the record, Al Gore, after the legal challenge was resolved, did not challenge the legitimacy of the president.
That's what I'm saying too.
Right. Well, I thought you were saying Democrats, which is not true.
Well, no, it's Al Gore. Right. Al Gore was the Democrat. He was the opponent. But to move on, I think that when we look at this, to come to the point that you and Brett were saying about his performance, I thought it's specific when it came to the foundation issue. There were some issues where he pointed out that Hillary Clinton had to pivot quickly away from what he was saying because she was on unsteady ground. But when it came back to the issue of rigging, and, this election is rigged, and he was pushed by Chris Wallace, then pushed by Mrs. Clinton, ultimately he found himself in a corner where she said, that's a pattern of Donald's behavior. He has a dark vision in which everything is rigged, and ultimately even not winning the Emmy, and he joked, should have won it. I just think, again, it reveals to the viewer here that Donald Trump has a certain vision, and I'm not sure that what came across was that of someone who is presidential, which was a high bar, but a necessary bar for him to meet tonight.
Dana.
I agree he had a first strong 30 minutes, but I just don't think that's enough. I thought that on the economy, that on the place where he could have actually played the most offense, he went on tangents about NAFTA and NATO that had nothing to do with the actual question in hand and his particular strengths. I did think it was good when he talked about being on the campaign trail for the past year and that it's moved him, that he has seen some of that. Like, that's some of that grace and humility that Laura Ingraham was talking about before the debate started. But I also felt that Hillary Clinton knew exactly who she was talking to, especially on the issues of the Supreme Court, guns, abortion, immigration, and nuclear weapons. And at the very end of the debate, fine debate for him. Not stellar. He's not going to win any awards for it. But at the end, when he whispers, "What a nasty woman," I thought, there's another headline for you that you didn't need.
As she said earlier in the debate, he attacks women, he disparages them personally. This was a point she started the debate with.
And again tonight, he did a better job of scoring points on her than he did making the case for himself in the programs. What I think would have helped him immensely tonight is when he laid out a vision of his own program, he could have spoken of it in some depth and with some force.
We're going to head into the spin room, Bridge. Sorry, this is Kellyanne Conway talking to our own Bill Hammer.
One time, confirming facts that have already been published by the New York Times. This woman has lied repeatedly to the FBI and others, to the Benghazi families who were in some of whom were in as our guest here tonight, Bill. And so I thought he really took the case to her and had her off balance. I thought tonight's debate showed people exactly what Donald Trump says. There's experience and then there's bad experience. And today she was held to account for really decades long of either misstep, miscalculations, or outright failures.
You have seen the polling. You watch it every day. And you have seen the polling move away from you for the past 2 weeks. Do you think tonight stopped that slide?
I do. I think you're going to see the polls tighten. If people were paying attention to that, and if the journalists who were privately telling me on my text and email that Hillary Clinton seemed off tonight and that it was Donald Trump's best debate, if they actually honestly put that in print and on radio and TV, and they're the ones conveying the messages to those Americans who maybe did not see the debate firsthand, then yes, you will see the polls tighten.
You told me before the debate started tonight that he was going to prosecute the last 30 years of Hillary Clinton. Do you think that was effective tonight? And how were you telling him to go after her? And was it less interruption?
It was very effective tonight. It was more facts and figures. And it was basically saying everything to her from, look, we would have been better off if you hadn't done anything in Syria. You own the Russian reset. The way you came out of Iraq helped to create the vacuum for the birth and growth of ISIS. You have said that you've been fighting for women and children for so many years. You've been there for 30 years. Nothing has happened. And I thought, Bill, every time you put Hillary Clinton on defense and she was mentioning about all the things that still need to be solved, it's a natural indictment of what hasn't been done in the 8 years of President Obama.
Thank you for your time, Kellyanne.
Bill Hemmer with Kellyanne Conway in the spin room.
She actually said earlier that Donald Trump will accept the results of the election because he will win the election, which is directly at odds with what her candidate said about 10 minutes earlier.
Which is probably going to be the headline.
I think if he wins, he will accept it.
He will accept it, definitely. He'll definitely accept it.
Let's be fair here, folks.
That's true.
If he got that Emmy.
Fair and balanced. It's been quite an evening. Much more to talk about, including some of Chris Wallace's best moments from the night.
We'll have our special coverage, and we're going to have some special guests as well coming up of the third and final presidential debate. Stay with us.
Donald Trump on partial birth abortion, one of the first topics in the Supreme Court section. We're back with the panel. You know, Dana, there was one moment where, it was towards the end, where Donald Trump said, Hillary, we've heard that before. And it was almost a Chris Christie, Marco Rubio, like, you are robotic. She said a couple of times, I'm not going to add a penny to the national debt, which, by the way, the Washington Post a couple weeks ago said that, at best, that's an exaggeration with her plan. But it seemed like he was trying to say, we've got it, we heard it, you're a robot.
Well, and he went back to that line that was really good for him in the first debate about her having been in public, not office, but serving for 30 years and never having gotten anything done. However, she was prepared for it this time, and she went through and she's like, "Oh yeah, well here's this." He says you have a lot of experience. He said you have a lot of experience, but it's bad experience. He said, "Oh really? Well, I'll compare mine to yours." And I think really is probably a draw at the end of that debate, that discussion.
Monica, she this time around did not touch, because Wallace set it up for Trump to speak to the women issue and for Hillary to speak to the new accuser who came forward on Bill Clinton today and the other accusers of Bill Clinton today. She didn't touch it.
Right, and for very good reason, because she's vulnerable on this issue, too. I wish Donald Trump had parried that question by saying, look, I have dealt with this issue, and then pivoted and said, this country has serious problems, most of which were created by you, the current president, and your party. I am here to offer concrete solutions to the American people on the issues they care about.
What did you make of his refusal to accept the election
results? Well, you know, there are two recent models in modern American history on this kind of question. 1960, Nixon versus Kennedy, and then, of course, the 2000 race, which we just discussed. Having worked with President Nixon during the last 4 years of his life, he and I talked about the 1960 race a lot. He was presented overnight that night, on election night, with credible evidence that the Kennedys and the Democrats had, in fact, rigged the election in Chicago, West Virginia, and in Texas, thanks to Lyndon Johnson. His family encouraged him to contest the results. A lot of other people told him to fight, and he chose not to, because he said, as I just wish that Donald Trump had responded, the country is in the middle of the Cold War, we have serious problems, and this country needs a full-time president. I wish he had responded more along those lines.
Juan, were you surprised that the Clinton Clinton Foundation answer that Hillary Clinton gave, she just kind of pivoted to what the foundation does.
I agree with you.
Not any answer on the
No, there were
later.
two pivots that I thought were highlights for Trump tonight. One was on the foundation because you could see that Hillary Clinton felt that, hey, I'm not going there. That's a little slippery for her. The other was on open borders. When he cited the information that came out of the WikiLeaks business where she was speaking before, I forget the name of the group, but she was speaking for, I think he said $250,000, and said that she wanted open borders, cross-trade. She started off by saying something about an electric grid and quickly pivoted away. So I think those were two good points for Donald Trump, because as a viewer I said, hey, she looks like she's moving on the defensive. He was on the defensive. If you think of this as Las Vegas, the 12th round, the final debate, somebody's got to throw haymakers here. It was Donald Trump who needed the big punch to come in. But he was on the defensive when he was asked about Putin. All of a sudden, he's defending Vladimir Putin, who's very unpopular, Republican or Democrat in the country. And secondly, the big issue for the last few weeks, women, where he blamed her. He said these women were either after 15 minutes of fame or they had been put up to it by Hillary Clinton's campaign. And again, I just thought, he's hurting himself.
But and on that issue, but then on the Project Veritas, where he pointed to those people on tape, he kind of did make some points.
But
there.
what about that? Because he really went on about the women, and what he said specifically is that they're liars, that I didn't do anything, I didn't know these women, which is not true. That her campaign did it, it's all fiction, she did it, they want fame.
So the question arises, Megan, in our poll yesterday, people were asked, the poll came out yesterday, people were asked, do you believe Donald Trump or do you believe the women? 51% believe the women. A quarter believe him. Did anything he said tonight alter that? I don't think so. And I think it's an issue that what he needs to do on that issue is to talk about it as little as possible. But I don't think that his sense of himself will permit him to do that. So instead of pivoting away, he engages on it, and it's an issue that doesn't help him. And this is a problem he's had all along. He doesn't seem to know the difference between issues that can help him, the subjects he should stay on, and issues that don't. If they affect his sort of sense of himself, he gets his back up, and the next thing you know, he's chasing some rabbit.
And to say things like, I don't know them. I mean, one was a contestant on The Apprentice. One was the People magazine reporter who had covered him for a long, long time and did a long profile on him.
And the question is, what is going to move the ball? What is going to change the electoral map? And did anything do that tonight?
The night is just beginning. Brett and I are going to be right back after our break as our special coverage continues live from Las Vegas, and we'll have someone from the Trump campaign here to join us. Jason Miller's up next. Now in the books, and for the very first time in this election cycle, the debate went heavy on the issues and policy early on, something voters have been demanding. But the question tonight, will it have any impact on the polls or the election just 20 days from now? And what about the accusations that this election is already rigged? Good evening from Las Vegas, everyone. I'm Megan Kelly.
And I'm Brett Baer. This was the candidate's last best chance to win over voters, and it was a fiery and contentious debate, really from the moment it started, that Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump walked onto that stage. Body language was clear. No love lost between the two. They did not shake hands. They remained on opposite sides of the stage. And from there, we witnessed a 90-minute slugfest. The candidates hit each other on abortion, on immigration, on the economy, on gun control, on debt, on Russia, their foundations, WikiLeaks. There was a lot packed in 90 minutes.
The women issue as well. The spin room is already buzzing. We're going to get to all of it tonight. But first to the issue that has dominated the headlines over the past few days. Mr. Trump's allegations that this election is rigged. Tonight he was asked directly if he will accept the result, if he will trust in the American electoral system, no matter what the result is on November 8th. Big show lined up for you tonight. Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway is here. Former Obama Deputy White House Press Secretary Bill Burton is with us as well. And so is former Reagan Education Secretary Bill Bennett. We'll also be joined by Charles Krauthammer, but we begin tonight with Jason Miller, Trump campaign's Senior Communications Advisor. Great to see you, Jason. Thank you for being here.
Megan, Brett.
Why did he say that he's not going to necessarily accept the results of the election?
Well, Megyn, no one has ever conceded an election before the election actually takes place. Nobody wants an Al Gore who goes out and concedes, then unconcedes, then concedes again.
It's not conceding. Do you trust in the integrity of the process? Will you accept the results, win or lose?
Let me tell you exactly what Mr. Trump was doing tonight. He was putting those who might be looking to commit voter fraud, he's putting them on notice that we're going to be watching. We're going to make sure that we have honest and fair elections. That's what he's doing.
So he doesn't trust in the integrity of the American electoral system.
He wants to make sure that we have honest and fair elections. It's leverage. That's exactly what Mr. Trump is saying.
Against whom?
Those who'd commit voter fraud.
How will he then exercise that leverage if he's displeased with the results?
Well, you want to go and make sure that people know that we're going to be watching exactly what's going to be happening, and we're going to make sure that the election is certified, and we're going to make sure the election is conducted honestly and forthright, and then we'll address it after that. But look, here's the thing. We're going to win this election. We believe that tonight was a great shot in the arm for this campaign. With 3 weeks to go, this exact kind of energy that we need heading into the election. We feel really good. This is easily Mr. Trump's best performance. It really took Hillary to task on her failed 30-year record. She had no answers for her role in destroying the Middle East. She had no answers on the Clinton Foundation. She had no answers for her campaign's role in inciting violence within our rallies and our events. And Mr. Trump laid out his plan for how he's going to make America great again.
Jason, what about at this point of the campaign, it's about addition, about adding more people, adding independents, adding disaffected Republicans. I had a senior Republican text me and say, this saying that you might not accept the election is like napalm in the final 20 days for those independents who may have been coming towards you. So how do you respond to that?
I think what people are looking for is a strong leader who's going to get our economy back on track, who's going to make our country safe again. And that's exactly, and Mr. Trump is laying out the case for why he is that leader. Look, I understand that the Democrats, that their heads are exploding tonight, that they want to go and make it about this because their candidate did very poorly in the debate. Hillary did very poorly. Mr. Trump did fantastic. And so, look, we think Mr. Trump did great, and
why did he say that he doesn't know any of those accusers when we know that he does?
Well, first of all these accusations, 100% completely false. There hasn't been any evidence that's been.
There has been. What is evidence? Evidence would be a testimonial by somebody who heard the story at the time. Because the People magazine reporter produced 6 witnesses who say that day or the next day she told them the story 10 years ago.
And Megyn, and the butler that was there said it didn't happen.
The butler was not with them in that room for the entire time. When he walked into the room, he didn't see anything. That doesn't disprove anything, Jason. You know that.
So these people didn't come out when Mr. Trump was running The Apprentice and had a 12-year run at the absolute top of the ratings. They didn't come forward when he announced. They didn't come forward when he won the nomination.
They came forward after he said he likes to grab them by the crotch and then denied he'd ever done it. That's when they came forward.
They came forward in the final several weeks of a campaign with an effort of swinging this election.
Stand by 1 second, Jason, because your candidate's son, Eric Trump, speaking to our own Bill Hemmer.
There's no question he won. I mean, he did such a great job. He brought the case to her. He talked about so many of her shortcomings, right? So many of the shortcomings, quite frankly, that so many of the moderators wouldn't talk about in the past, he talked about tonight, and I think he really brought the case to her. And, you know, he brought the case about how America's been failing over the last years and how America's been left behind. It's left so many of our citizens behind. And we need to get our country back. We need to get our deficit in control. We need to get education back. We need to take care of our vets. We need to take care of our military. We have to stop the really bad trade deals that's put our country at such a huge disadvantage. We have to bring jobs back to our nation. And he's going to do all of those things.
What was the intention of not answering the question about a fair election in America this year?
Yeah. Well, you and I have talked about this before, and I think when you look at the mainstream media and the way they've been covering this election, none of it's been fair, right? None of it's been fair. They haven't put any attention on the WikiLeaks. I mean, you have some really bad things in the WikiLeaks. I mean, here you have a major campaign that's making fun of Christians, that's making fun of evangelicals, that's quite frankly admitting that Donna Brazile gave Hillary Clinton some of the debate questions.
I understand the point you're making, but the question was about whether or not the election is fair. What's the answer?
I certainly, with the mainstream media, I don't think the election's fair, and I think you do see voter fraud out there. There's no question that voter fraud exists. There are dead people who are on the voter rolls, and you have to take care of it. And honestly, we're better than that as a society. You have to take care of it, and my father will do that.
Thank you for your time. Eric Trump, thank you. Brett, Megyn, back outside.
Bill, thank you. I want to resume on Trump and the women, because the other thing he said was he denied that he had ever suggested these women were not attractive enough. Here's the denial tonight, and then here's another soundbite thereafter. Listen.
look at her words. You tell me what you think. I don't think so. I don't think. When you looked at that horrible woman last night, you said, I don't think so. I don't think so. I was sitting with him on an airplane, and he went after me on the plane. Yeah, I'm going to go after. Believe me, she would not be my first choice, that I can tell you.
Jason?
Megan, these accusations are completely...
No. Stay on that. Why did he deny that he denied that he disparaged their looks when accused of harassing them?
He was clearly talking about their words. He was talking about their words, Megan.
Look at her.
Talking about her words. It's absolute.
Why did he say when you looked at her, when you saw her, you knew I didn't do it?
Because it wasn't credible. It wasn't credible at all.
You could tell from her face that she wasn't credible?
You could tell none of the stories. Oh, look, what people want to see is who's going to be the leader, is going to get this country back on track. That's what people want to talk about. They're not talking about this, Megan.
I know, but his attitudes towards women matter because he's struggling with them. And my question for you is, are exchanges like that and him calling Hillary such a nasty woman at the end of this debate going to help him? He wants to win. Why do anything to alienate the female voters?
He's not alienating female voters. What he's laying out is a clear case of what he's going to do for this country. So tonight, the one thing that's important to point out for folks at home is that Mr. Trump laid out a reason to vote for him. I didn't see that from Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton attacked, she dodged, she weaved. Even the more liberal reporters said that she couldn't answer a lot of the questions. Trump gave people a reason to be for somebody. That's the important thing coming out tonight. It was a fantastic debate performance, and we think it's going to carry us to victory.
What'd you think of Chris Wallace?
Chris did well.
He did, right? Well. It's a fair and balanced debate.
Chris is tough. Chris is tough all the way around. And, you always know what you're going to get with Chris.
Yeah, he pressed both sides.
That's true.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jason. One of Donald Trump's most pointed attacks of the night targeted the Clinton Foundation, the millions that charity has raked in, and how those donations have been spent. Watch.
It just was astonishing.
Bill Burton is a former White House Deputy Press Secretary for President Obama. He joins us now. Bill, at that point, Secretary Clinton seemed a bit on her heels on the issue of Clinton Foundation and whether she was going to answer the pay-for-play direct question posed by Chris Wallace.
I don't think so. Actually, I think that she was on pretty good footing. And the thing about the Clinton Foundation that Republicans hate so much is that what it does is it takes money from the rich and gives it to the poor. And I know that there's a problem with that generally on the Republican side, but...
No, that's not true, Bill. I mean, it's about the pay-for-play part.
The Clinton Foundation is something that Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Chelsea Clinton, nobody has financially benefited from. It has gone to the benefit of millions of people around the world who've seen the good work that it's done. So I think Hillary was on very solid footing on that question. And the problem for Donald Trump is that he wanted to make some hay with that question, but instead all the headlines tomorrow are going to be about how he won't concede if he doesn't feel like the election goes the way it ought to go.
I mean, we talked about that, and clearly that's going to be a lot of news in a lot of news organizations, and it is a big moment in the debate. But the question I'm asking you is, why not get to the answer of pay for play? Why not answer the Haiti-specific question and then spend all that time saying what the Clinton Foundation, does on the percentages? I mean, she just didn't answer the question, right?
Well, because there is no pay for play. Like, the money that comes into the Clinton Foundation goes out to groups and to individuals that are actually doing good all over the world. Like, they have made
donors
a difference in the lives of millions of people. All of the contracts have been fairly awarded, and they go through a process within the State Department, within all the different aid departments inside the government, to make sure that they're fairly awarded. Because WikiLeaks and the Russian government decided that there was an email here or there that they wanted to release to try to influence on this election, doesn't mean that there was some pay to play. People need to remember, the Clintons do not benefit financially from the Clinton Foundation. The people who benefit are the folks who are receiving the aid, the millions upon millions of dollars of aid that the Clintons have brought to people all over the world. It's a phenomenal organization that's been dragged through the mud by Donald Trump.
You have to concede there are questions about not only the Clinton Foundation, but also throughout the speeches that were given and the money that was given to former President Clinton for traveling the world. There are questions, legitimate questions, that were not addressed in this debate.
Well, there are questions. Well, there's a lot of questions that weren't addressed in this debate. For example, there should have been some questions about education. That's not a hit on Chris Wallace, who I think did a phenomenal job, but they didn't talk a lot about education. They didn't talk a lot about a lot of issues that I think Americans were interested in. Donald Trump wanted to talk about Malik Obama, but I don't think anybody thought that he saved his debate performance tonight. So I think that Donald Trump's meandering approach to this debate is just going to come back to hurt him in the end.
Bill, as always, we appreciate your time.
Bill Hummer speaking with Donald Trump Jr. Let's take a listen.
Talking about inciting violence at Trump rallies, right? They're going out and they're saying, it's disgusting what's come out in the last few weeks. When you look at the WikiLeaks, the fraud, the waste, the abuse, the way the other campaign talks about virtually all Americans. Before it used to be just 50%, because that's the basket of deplorables. Now it's evangelicals. Then it was African Americans. Then it's needy Hispanics. All these things that have come out. I'm just glad that people really see what's going on in this process.
Democrats would allege that you're trying to drive voter turnout down by going more and more negative.
Excuse me.
Is there truth to that
that's
or
what
not?
They're doing. That's what they've done their whole life. We have tapes now that came out today or yesterday saying we're busing people from all over. We're breaking the law. We've been doing it for 50 years and it's not going to stop now. Where's the outrage on that? Where's the outrage on that? They're admitting to breaking the law. High-level people committing fraud during the process. Where's the outrage? Because I don't see it. It's only outrageous if you're a conservative and you do something.
I know you believe your father won tonight,
yes.
And I know you believe this was better than debate number 1 24 days ago. What did you specifically tell him to change about his performance tonight?
I didn't tell him to change anything. You know what? He hasn't spent his whole life to be up on a debate stage like a career politician. He spent his life creating jobs, building things, doing things that would benefit American workers in this country. He's done that for his whole career. So you know what? He's learning. He's learning as you go. Imagine if he was doing this for his whole life, he'd be the greatest politician in the history of the world. Okay? He's learning as he goes because he's a real American. He's been speaking with real Americans from day one. He's not talking at them. He's talking with them. He wants all Americans because guess what? Unlike Hillary Clinton, who's gotten very rich being a politician, peddling American influence, he hasn't. This is only a step down. But he wants to make sure that all Americans, all ethnicities and backgrounds, have the same opportunities to do what he's been able to do. To start a great family, start a great business.
20 days ago, Donald Trump Jr., thank you for your time.
You bet. Good to see you.
Megan.
Bill, thank you. Well, as you just heard, there is a moment tonight when Donald Trump raised the issue of how Democratic operatives have been caught on tape. You heard a little bit from Donald Trump Jr. taking credit for the riots that rocked a Trump rally in Chicago last winter. Donna Brazil, the current head of the DNC, is with us next on that.
Person to run
that was Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton discussing the WikiLeaks revelations. Our next guest believes Donald Trump did as well tonight as he did in the second debate, but did he do enough to help him win in November? Joining us now, Bill Bennett, Education Secretary under President Reagan and Chairman of the Conservative Leaders for Education. Hiya, Bill. What'd you think?
Hi. I would have wished education had come up, too, because the Democrats' ownership of it has been really bad for education. I thought Trump did very well. He knows where Mosul is. He knows where Aleppo is, unlike Gary Johnson. And he knows the connection between the two, which is good. I thought he did his homework. I think the conventional wisdom now in the press already is that this was this horrible thing about us, was the election rigged. And he'll wait till the day after the election to decide. People need to look at a little American history here. There have been a lot of allegations of this. There have been a lot of challenges. Take John Kennedy, West Virginia. Richard Nixon might have wanted to take another look at West Virginia. Al Gore said, "I wanted to recount after pledging that he would abide by the results." So, why not wait till the day after? He's not going to lead a revolution on the White House. He's not going to mount a horse with a bayonet. I think that was ridiculous. I think Chris did a very good job, except for one thing. He pushed hard. Trump pushed Trump hard on the 9 women. Okay, fine. That's the topic. He said, then Mrs. Clinton, I want to talk to you about Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. That's not allegations with Bill Clinton. We know what happened. There's a dress. I hate to remind people of history.
Well, that's
but history is real. It isn't?
No, that is an affair.
Oh.
And it was just to separate out his affairs that he obviously had from the sexual assaults which he denies.
Yes, it was an affair with an intern while President of the United States.
I do not offer an excuse for it. I am just offering a distinction.
Okay, fine. And in terms of nasty woman, I know we're going to run with this. 2 questions. Is she nasty? Is she a woman? Yes.
What about these other issues? The Veritas tape, the WikiLeaks, the FBI documents. Did he do a good job of prosecuting?
She didn't answer. And what was so interesting is he made it personal. He said, Hillary ordered these people to disrupt the riots. I thought, well, that was going a little far. I doubt if that rose to her level. But maybe Democratic operatives did. But she had no answer, no substantive answer to that. And on the WikiLeaks, she said, well, the Russians did it. The Russians made me do it. Did the Russians make you say it? It's a different argument. To say the Russians may have leaked this is not the same as saying, I never said that. And she said it. Open border.
What did you make, Bill, about the discussion that they had on abortion and her defense of third-term partial birth abortion, a procedure which has been banned, and the ban upheld?
I thought it was very smart of him to go to partial birth abortion, to go to the last stage. She made the rhetorical point, which is effective. I've talked to a lot of women. You should talk to these women. There's a response to that, too, which is we should talk to the babies who were aborted. Unfortunately, we cannot.
Well, she was talking a lot about the toddlers and gun violence and how she wanted to protect the toddlers. And the pro-life crowd online was saying, so you care about the toddlers, but what about the 9-month babies in womb?
Yeah, what about the really little toddlers? And the numbers in terms of children who are aborted compared to toddlers who mess with guns are many, many times.
So the overall perception tonight, you think it was his best debate. Mm-hmm. You think that he prosecuted some things well, but do you think it moved the ball enough to change the dynamics in this race as we see them?
I don't know. Unlike everybody else who comments, I don't know. I don't.
We like that every now and then.
I don't know. Yeah, I know you let me say I don't know. I don't know what the American people will do, but I'll tell you this: I think the issues he's identified are the important ones, and I think the fundamental question is: do you want change, or how about the way things are? She really did defend the way things are and the decisions they've made, and I think most Americans looking out at the country would say things aren't the way they should be.
Bill, great to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Did you win last night?
What?
Did you win a little bit?
Win at what? I took my wife to dinner. That's always a win.
That's a win.
Always a win.
That's a win. Very nicely done.
All right, Donald Trump tonight defending his past comments on Russia's Vladimir Putin, just as he assures Americans that he does condemn any hacking by Russia against Americans. Watch.
Go step of the way.
Joining me now, co-host of I'll Tell You What. Better? Here on Fox. On Sundays at 5 p.m., Chris Stirewall, and host of Media Buzz, Howie Kurtz. Great to see you both.
How are we doing?
I know you are, but what am I? You're the puppet. that may not have been the highest brow moment of the debate, but overall, your thoughts?
Yeah, not exactly Lincoln Douglas there. Look, I think that Donald Trump deftly spun away policy liabilities onto Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama.
And called her on her spinning.
Right.
Called her on her pivots.
Called her on her pivots. He said, I didn't come up with the idea for the wall. You wanted the wall. Don't blame me for the wall. I don't want to deport people. Obama deported people. So as he was unburdening himself of things that are not helpful for him in the general election, he showed political aptitude, and that was good. But unfortunately for him, he said the thing about the elections, and that is going to blow up everything else.
Howie, I'm just looking now. Okay, Wall Street Journal. Trump won't say if he accepts results if he loses. New York Times. Trump won't say if he will accept election results. Politico. I'll keep you in suspense.
Yeah.
Los Angeles Times. You name it. Washington Post. Every single USA Today, that's the headline.
And this is going to go on for a week. And I know they went over this in debate prep, and obviously Kellyanne Conway and others have been out there publicly saying, no, we're not going to challenge. We're just talking about the unfair media. And Trump gave the answer he wanted to give. Until that moment, I was sitting there typing, Trump is having his strongest debate of the three. He is solid. He is going toe-to-toe with Hillary Clinton. She had a little bit of difficulty on some tough questions from our colleague Chris Wallace on partial birth abortion, on WikiLeaks, open borders, and so forth. But with that one answer, sometimes it takes 1 minute out of the 90. Trump reset it. That's going to be the big story, and he's going to be pestered about this day after
Can
day.
you just explain why that's such a deal?
What do you mean why? It's
just go for it. Go for it. You, student of electoral history, just explain.
219 years.
Because Bill Bennett's like, come on, get over it.
The French have had 6 republics in the time that we've had 1. This is hard to keep. Keeping a republic is damned hard business. And in the United States, and I couldn't help but sit and think while I watched these two people on screen having you're a puppet, no, you're a puppet. I thought about Marines dead at Iwo Jima. I thought about what sacrifices Americans have made for all of these times, and that at the center of all of it is the peaceful transference of executive power. That is the cornerstone. A civilian-controlled military that answers to a civilian commander-in-chief, duly elected by his fellow citizens and the peaceful transition of power. That's huge. I don't
What if there's voter fraud? What if there's
Of course there's voter fraud.
Some results.
He's losing by 8 points. There ain't that much voter fraud. If the whole country was Chicago, there wouldn't be enough voter fraud to do that.
In fairness, Trump didn't say he was going to challenge the outcome of the election.
I'll
But
keep you in suspense.
Yeah.
The argument is it's a little too flippant for what we're talking about.
It sounds sore loserish. It sounds like you're setting up an excuse in advance. I mean, fine to bash the media, fine to go against the establishment and all that. And Hillary Clinton had a good comeback all the times that he's complained about Rick System, including the funny line about the Emmys.
What did you think? I thought that you could see that this was a Fox News fair and balanced debate.
Wasn't that good?
And for our critics, that doesn't mean a conservative debate. It means somebody who offers grist for the mill for both sides, who presses both sides equally, who doesn't just pursue sort of a dogmatic left-wing. Not that I'm not saying that all the other moderators did that, but you could see that Chris Wallace would upset some on the left by asking questions that wouldn't have been asked in other debates, and that's good. You should really tick off both sides, then you know you're doing well.
Amen.
But what did you think?
I'm looking for something to criticize Chris Wallace on so I can be fair and balanced. It was masterful. I mean, the way he crafted those questions and the way he brought up topics, whether it's partial birth abortion or others that we haven't seen in other debates, but just when you thought, well, maybe he's being a little hard on Hillary Clinton, he would come back with a zinger for Trump. He didn't let either of them stampede. Sometimes he had to interject himself quite forcefully. And following my journalistic friends on Twitter, I mean, Chris Wallace is a big winner tonight.
He was getting praise from, Andrea Mitchell of MSNBC.
Yep.
I mean, it's great. He did great. Final thoughts. Does this move the needle?
Well, first final thought, Chris Wallace is a stud duck, man. I tell you what, that
duck.
is all right.
That's incongruous.
We'll take you to the farm. I'll show you a couple things. But that one, and then two, the final thought is this probably doesn't move the needle, except for the fact that it will confirm to the hardcore where they are that they're making the right choice and they're doing the right thing. As for those 40 million who decide the election, I don't know.
20 days to go. Trump really needed to move the needle. Even if he had fought to a draw, even if he hadn't given that answer, he didn't change the dynamics of the race. Yeah. They both played to their bases. That is not going to reset this race in his favor.
What he said.
Great to see you both, stud ducks.
So, the head of AP for the debate moderator, this is how it reads. Fox News' Chris Wallace worked hard Wednesday to keep the final presidential debate substantive with tough questions to Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, but the simplest of queries extracted the biggest headline. That is the first paragraph for the Associated Press. Says a lot. Charles Krauthammer is a syndicated columnist and Fox News contributor. Charles, your thoughts on this debate?
Well, the consensus is right, number one, that Chris Wallace is the big winner. That was the best moderator performance I've ever seen. He actually conducted a substantive debate, which I don't think anybody's been able to do in this cycle, all alone, without his usual wingman. And he did it in a way that allowed them to actually have long discussions without interruption. That is very hard to do and very rare, as anyone who's done it knows. Now, as to the candidates, Trump had a really good night, but here the consensus is right. He blew it up by a totally wrong answer on accepting the results. And in some sense, I almost admire him for it. This was not a gaffe where you say something off the cuff and it's what you think, but it's wrong. You know that he'd been coached on this. You know that his vice president had said, of course, we would accept the result, and his campaign manager and his daughter. And you know that he's convinced that this is something he wants to take a stand on. And the calculation, this is political suicide. Because what was his task tonight? His task tonight was to stop the slide. The slide had to do with people who are grudgingly going over to Clinton, who don't want to, have held out for a year, but for the last 3 weeks said, I can't have Trump. This was his opportunity to show them they're not going to change their views on Clinton. But if they could change their views on Trump to make him less toxic and acceptable as president and less radical, yes, they want a change agent. They think the country's on the wrong track. But they don't want a radical who will challenge the foundations of the republic. Yes, you criticize conditions, you're going to change Washington, etc. But you don't challenge the legitimacy of an election and hold up the prospect of actual non-acceptance. And when he did that, I think it was a terrible mistake.
This was Donald Trump channeling Steve Bannon, not channeling Kellyanne Conway.
And he,
his
right.
messaging.
And the reason it's damaging is because up until then, I thought he was winning the debate. This is the first time and the first debate that he's won on points, on logic, on being able to make a case, on bringing up stuff. And he's had a lot of new material, much of it ignored by the mainstream media over the last 3 weeks. And he got a lot of it in there, especially when he brought up the WikiLeaks stuff. And she walked into a trap saying that he had encouraged the violence in his campaign, a terrible mistake on her part, because the obvious answer was, how can you say that when it was instigated by your own people? So he was nimble. He was relaxed. At the beginning, he was so soft-spoken. I thought he should have had a drug test. But he was very calm and contained. There were a lot of interjections which I thought were bad and sort of diminished him on the temperament issue. But until then, I think he could have walked away with a win. And unfortunately, as you read all these headlines, that is not how it's going to be seen. Nobody remembers. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's interesting that this whole process started with Donald Trump and that first debate in Cleveland in August of last year. The very first question was, raise your hand if you pledge, just to not run.
Support. To support the nominee.
As an independent and to you're right. And he didn't raise his hand. And
I thought that you're absolutely right.
It's the same kind of thing. But Bill Bennett, Charles, was saying we're going to make too much a deal out of this, and that he's just essentially saying, I'm not going to make my decision up until the election comes.
I think your analogy is exactly right. It reminded me exactly of that. And he must have been thinking, remember, he got booed. It was you who asked the question. And remember, he got booed by the audience. Nonetheless, he began to shoot up in the polls. It did not cost him, as most of us thought. I'm sure his calculation is it's not going to cost him, and it's going to help him. I don't understand that calculation. But I do think he said it out of conviction. He's a man who says, I'm not a loser. So if he does lose, it's got to be something else. But I think he's miscalculated here, and it will likely show.
Charles Krauthammer, as always, thank you.
Well, a new controversy surfaced 2 days ago, and it became a major moment tonight when Donald Trump confronted Hillary Clinton over new allegations that Democratic operatives, potentially coordinating with the Democratic National Committee and even the Clinton campaign, paid agitators to incite violence at Trump rallies. Watch. National Committee. Donna, thank you very much for being here. So the people involved in that campaign to incite violence at the Trump rallies and make it look like Trump supporters were violent when in fact they had been provoked by these folks looking for a fight, say that this was in direct coordination with Hillary Clinton's camp and with the DNC. Scott Povall, the guy caught on tape who's now been fired, said this is how it worked. The Hillary camp pays the DNC pays Democracy Partners, our group, who pays the Povall group, and that's the group that quote, executes the expletive on the ground.
Hey, Kelly, that contract, first of all, that contract, based on my knowledge, I became chair on July 28th. The contract that is allegedly being referred to was not signed until June of 2016. I think all of that evidence is out there. Look, when you have a convicted criminal sneaking around your office with imposters that try to
Are you referring to Bob Kramer, the head of Democracy Partners?
No, I'm referring to Mr. O'Keefe in the instance that he has doctored some videos as he's done before. But again, going back to the so-called contract that you mentioned, Bob's contract, according to the records that I was able to pull at the DNC, was not signed until June of 2016.
Bob Kramer,
Bob,
just to get our viewers up to speed. Let me just say, I'll give you the floor, but I just want to tell our viewers what we're talking about because they may not know who he is. Bob Kramer's the head of... One second, Donna. Forgive me because I just want to get the viewers up to speed who haven't been following this like you and I have.
Okay.
Bob Kramer was the head of Democracy Partners. This is one of the groups, he's now been fired. This is one of the groups that committed these acts facts. He's the man who was at the White House 342 times and met personally, according to the records, with President Obama in some fashion over 40 times. He's now been dismissed, but he's the one saying that there was coordination with the DNC, and this is obviously a very well-connected man. He, too, is a convicted felon, convicted for fraud. This is obviously not an honest person, and yet you were working very closely with him, the DNC.
Well, again, Bob Kramer, I went back to the DNC the other day when this came up after we learned that we had a trespass, a convicted criminal sneaking around our office posing as an intern. And I asked for the records of Mobilize to be produced. Now, Bob, this was Bob contract with Mobilize, his group, was signed in June to help us with building rallies across the country, meaning Democratic rallies. So what Mr. Trump was referring to, and I'm sure you'll see the results, that was something that happened months ago, and I have no evidence and no knowledge of that. Mr. Kramer stepped aside because he did not want to be the kind of distraction that he is even at this point. Here, I just witnessed the third debate. I went to all three debates. I thought Hillary did a fantastic job. I thought she was not only on the mark in terms of the substance and talking about real solutions for the middle class, but Donald Trump had an opportunity tonight to tell the American people that he would not allow any foreign government to undermine our democratic process. And rather than take that position, Donald Trump basically said, in a democracy where the voters should decide, he alone will make the decision whether or not he will accept the results. It's the citizens who, it's the citizens. It's the citizens. I feel very strongly about you. You feel strongly about an imposter walking into our office and trying to get staff people to do X and Y and then come up with this video. I feel very strongly about the right of every citizen to vote, Kelly, and I want to make sure every American have the right to vote on Election Day.
Let's be clear. I've said nothing about my feelings. This is about a controversy that has erupted to the point where I wasn't the one who fired these two staffers. The Democrats fired these two staffers. So obviously they believe some wrongdoing took place. Whether the tape was obtained, let me just finish, whether the tape was obtained improperly or not. But no one so far has come out to challenge the legitimacy of these particular tapes put out by James O'Keefe and Project Veritas. In fact, they've acted on them.
Absolutely.
So you say that the tapes are falsified?
Mr. O'Keefe enjoys falsifying records. He did it with NPR. He's done it with
what about in this
sources. But Kelly, can I ask you, we're at a presidential debate. And Donald Trump made several ridiculous claims tonight.
But you're dodging. I hit Donald Trump's representatives with those, but now I have you.
I don't play dodgeball, honey. I play basketball. And I'm just telling you, he tried to score on misinformation. He's trying to score.
But I have you.
On
listen.
That was obtained illegally.
You say that, Donna.
Kelly.
You say that you play straight up. But I have to ask you because you were accused of receiving a debate question before a CNN town hall where they partnered with TV One, and that you had this question on March 12th. That verbatim was provided by Roland Martin to CNN the next day. How did you get that question, Donna?
Well, Kelly, since I play straight up, and I'll play straight up with you, I did not receive any questions from CNN. Let's just be
Where'd
very
you get it?
clear.
Where did you get it?
First of all, what information are you providing to me that will allow me to see what you're talking about? Everybody
You got the WikiLeaks released a March 12th Podesta email showing you messaging the Clinton campaign with the exact wording of a question asked at the March 13th CNN TV1 town hall debate.
Kelly,
where did you get it?
You know, as a Christian woman, I understand persecution, but I will not sit here and be persecuted because your information is totally false. What you're telling the American people,
email.
Well, Podesta's emails were stolen. You're so interested in talking about stolen
material. So you deny
it. You're like a thief that want to bring into the night the things that you found that was in his gutter. I'm not. Let me just tell you what I said from day one.
CNN's Jake Tapper came out and said this was unethical. Somebody was unethically helping the Clinton campaign. He said, "I love Donna Brazile, but this is very, very upsetting." My understanding is that the email to Donna Brazile, this is Jake Tapper. My understanding is that the email to Donna Brazile came from either Roland Martin or someone around Roland Martin. he said, this is very upsetting and very troubling. That's your own colleague at CNN. It's not Megyn Kelly. Who gave you that question?
Hey, Megan, once again, I've said it, and I've said it on the record, and I'll say it on the record, and I'll keep saying it on the record. I am not going to try to validate falsified information. I have my documents. I have my files. Thank God I have not had my personal emails ripped off from me and stolen and given to some criminals to come back altered. I have my records, I have my files, and as I've said repeatedly, CNN, in the 14 years I was associated with CNN, I've never received anything. If I had a blank piece of paper, that would basically be the end of this conversation. I never get documents from CNN.
Your email to the Clinton camp said, sometimes I receive the questions in advance. And
you know what?
CNN is saying Roland Martin gave them to you or someone at TV One, and they were provided to Hillary before that town hall.
Well, anybody who knows me, and there are a number of your colleagues as well, they know me very well. I know how I play it. I know what I do before every debate. I know what I do before every show, even this show. I do my homework. I communicate. I talk. But I can just once again let you know that as far as I know, that CNN has never provided me with questions. Absolutely, ever, nada.
Well, when you said so, from time to time I get the questions in advance, what were you referring to? Because in that email you offered the exact question that one of the moderators, Roland Martin, then proposed the next day.
So my reference back to you, ma'am, with all respect, and I respect you greatly.
And I respect you too.
The validity of those emails, if I can only tell you one thing, because as you know, this whole episode is under criminal investigation. But I could just tell you one thing. A lot of those emails, I would not give them the time of the day. I've seen so many doctored emails. I've seen things that come from me at 2 in the morning that I don't even send. There are several email addresses that I once used. And I'm just sorry that we have, this has not been verified. This is, nobody will, this is under investigation. And let me just tell you something. If there's anything that I have, I will share. I don't have
I got to run because we've got another guest waiting.
I don't have an agenda to smear anybody, but I do believe that Hillary did a great job.
All right, all the best to you.
Go to Russia.
Still ahead, Hillary supporter Mark Cuban, Trump supporter David Wall, in a must-see after debate that was something else. No relation to the Wall, attorney and Donald Trump supporter, and Mark Cuban, billionaire entrepreneur and Hillary Clinton supporter. Mark, first to you. Your thoughts on this debate?
You know, I thought Trump wasn't doing poorly. He was doing okay. His temperament was okay. But then he disowned American democracy when he said he would not trust the outcome of the election, and that blew the entire debate for him. I thought Hillary Clinton did well. She answered the questions she was asked with depth and with certainty. You know, it was an open book test, and she should have done it. And I think she did a very good job.
What about that, David, about that moment that seems to be leading in all the papers and all the online about not accepting or not yet the results of the election?
Well, I think he wants to wait to see whether it's super close. Could there be another Bush v. Gore? I mean, could there be something akin to the Chad, the hanging Chads? I mean, I don't know. He's not willing to concede anything yet because that's the way he is. I mean, Mark has probably a lot of the same character traits when it comes to... No. Well, you're not going to... If somebody said you accept something that's going to happen 3 weeks from now when you don't know all the details...
It's the American election.
You won't do it.
It's the presidential election. Let me turn it around. Vladimir Putin says the American election is rigged. You cannot trust the outcome of the presidential election. What do we all say?
You know what
does this whole country say?
Brett, you know what I thought was incredibly powerful tonight was Donald Trump needs to get on email right now and thank.
So you changed the subject just like that.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the substance of the debate. Every time something WikiLeaks was brought up, hold on. Every time something WikiLeaks exposed was brought up. For example, Hillary Clinton saying she doesn't want open borders, but oops, there was the WikiLeaks statement that she made to a bank saying her dream is an open borders paradise. What did she do? She pivoted limited to the fact that Russia hacked all the emails. That's not a substantive response.
But you do concede
that
that moment is going to trump some of perhaps the good moments that Donald Trump had.
But we don't know it, number one. But if Russia did hack those emails, they expose things that the American voter has the right to know. Whether this corruption is taking place, whether Hillary Clinton says one thing to banks and one thing to the voters, that's critically important. This isn't an election for dog catcher.
So what you're saying that Meredith McIver should release all those emails that she does for Donald Trump because the American people have a right to know.
If she sees fit, I say absolutely.
Mark,
that's her
let me ask you. I mean, you know that this electorate is hungry for authenticity. They're hungry for something different. They're hungry. I mean, that's part of his candidacy is this businessman approach, much like you would approach something. Do you think Hillary Clinton got across what she needed to get across tonight on that, considering this electorate?
Yes. Now, is she going to convince the hardcore Trump voter? Absolutely not. But this was an open book test, right? This wasn't, we don't know where the questions are coming from. They knew the topics. And when she was asked a topic, she gave a very concise, complete answer. So you knew exactly where she stood.
I heard you say that Steve Bannon is the big winner of this.
Without question, right?
Why do you say that?
When Donald Trump creates all these conspiracy theories, questioning the election, questioning the media, etc. Who benefits from that? That certainly doesn't benefit his campaign. But November 9th, Breitbart News is going to say, we were there. We have all the inside information. Come to us because we know what happened.
If there's there's no substance in the
big winner is Steve
no one
Bannon
knows
and
who
Breitbart.
Steve Bannon is.
I know who Steve. I've done business with him.
Of course you do.
He's a smart guy. He's smarter than Donald.
All right, you know what? Final word here, David. Can he change the map? Can he change the momentum?
I think he can because this has been such a volatility. This has been so volatile that 5 days from now, it could change 4 or 5 points. Trump could be right back in it. 3 weeks from now is the election. I expect Mark, by the way, to pivot to Trump. Back to Trump.
No chance.
We'll see.
No.
Are you going to run in 4 years?
No chance. You think I put my family through this? No chance.
All right.
Maybe when I'm 93.
Mark, David, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Well, that wraps up our coverage of the post-debate, the final debate in this election season. I will say that this debate obviously is about policy and it's about, the back and forth and making the decision for voters to make a decision. But when Chris introduced the debate and said, I'm Chris Wallace from Fox News, I got some goosebumps because 20 years later, to see that happen was a big moment for this channel, and we were all proud of Chris and for all the work he did.
Amen. And it's been, Fox News is the #1 most watched cable news channel of all, by a lot, and has been for a long time. And they have not picked a Fox News moderator, despite that fact, ever. So we all felt very proud of him, and it was a moment for the team, too. And it's been